Hello, everyone. I'm Sherilyn and Gary's oldest child, and I'm honored to share about Mom's influence in her beautiful, sparkling spirit, one that's very much alive in heaven because of her faith in Jesus Christ. In talking with others recently, I've heard, your mom was a beauty, so much fun, the life of a party, full of energy, a jack of all trades, but above all, she brought laughter and light. These thoughts echoed what I'd always heard. Loral, your mom is so beautiful. As I grew up, I saw how hard she worked for beauty with that healthy eating and the daily Jane Fonda workouts. She augmented that toned physique with her knack for putting together the sparkling outfits, coordinating jewelry, and well-done makeup and nails. My sister-in-law, Kelly, said she was fancy, and yet she was real. Mom's appearance complemented the sparkle of her personality that exuded her loving words and actions as she delighted in her children, developed friendships, and served others. Her inquisitive and caring nature helped her sparkle as a mom. She noticed and accentuated our childhood affinities. Strawberry shortcake, for example, was on one of my birthday cakes and on the decorative pillows in my room. Mom also applied her educator knowledge to help us overcome struggles. When she discovered how shy I was at 5, she became a brownie leader, got to know the other moms in the neighborhood, and invited their girls to our home to ensure I made friends. Mom stayed true to her roots that taught her to make the most of everything we had, despite my dad's extraordinary business success. Nibbling on the bones of chicken, she earned the nickname Ruff Ruff. She repurposed family heirlooms, furniture, and decorative items when she wanted to redecorate, which was often. She prepared home-cooked meals, and she helped us appreciate our food, telling us about Japan's starving children. She helped us enjoy serving others by equipping us to volunteer using our interests. Since I was like a fish as a kid, she arranged for me to play with kids with disabilities in the water. And her guidance fueled my philanthropic efforts in high school and in college, which morphed into ministry efforts that are still integral in my life today. The Johnson County Young Matron's House Tour was a highlight of Mom's volunteer work. She brought that inspiration home, involving us kids and decorating our home as well, and Dad's office. For Christmas, Mom had a fancy tree upstairs and a sentimental tree downstairs. Her holiday tables matched her sparkling personality with glistening mirrored placemats with more than a dozen place settings for 2 sets of grandparents, aunts, uncles, and eventually cousins. Mom's interest in beauty and caring for others extended beyond our family and community to include an appreciation of art and people from other cultures. She fostered that interest for our family during a trip to Epcot Center, where Mom brought me a Japanese tea set I still have. And then Asian art was on our guest bath wallpaper, which likely fueled a dream I had in my 20s of floating down a boat on an Asian river. When I shared that dream with Mom, she later took me to Thailand for my 30th birthday. We rode elephants, danced in the street, ate fried bugs, and stayed overnight in a jungle hut, which was great until we had a bat intruder. And then we got little sleep that night as we peeked at each other with giggles and fright. But we were well protected with the sheets over our heads. For Mom and me, before there was Asia, there was Europe. After I'd been studying French for 4 years, Mom took me to Paris at 17. First time I took her place as a tour guide, and she loved that. When I studied in Salzburg in college, Mom arranged for our family to visit during spring break, and once again, I got to be the tour guide. She also loved me showing her around Chicago, where I lived for 14 years. She especially loved walking through museums, taking river architecture rides, touring the cathedrals, Frank Lloyd Wright homes, and fancy hotels. When we weren't touring, Mom was helping me spruce up one of my 7 Chicago apartments. I'll never forget when my 50-something-year-old mom crawled into my second-story storage cage to retrieve my decorative items placed there after a recent move to ensure my apartment got properly decorated on Mother's Day. In addition to touring and decorating, we delighted our taste buds in Chicago's ethnic restaurants, and we also created our own international tastes. We went to an Asian market to have a sushi making party for my 32nd birthday. And for Mom's 65th birthday, I copied her favorite restaurant from Chicago's savory crepe, and for dessert, I made Nutella crepes, which we had enjoyed in Paris. After I moved to Tennessee at 40, Mom fell in love with Tennessee's rolling hills, live music, historic mansions, and Southern fare, just like I did. But no matter where I was, when Mom visited, she would linger and listen over hot tea. If I was struggling, she would reassure me, saying, "Loral, you'll figure out a way to solve the problem. You're so talented." Her confidence in me and how she helped make it be easy to make friends helped me reinvent my life multiple times for college, study abroad, post-graduation, after divorce, and post-corporate life. Speaking of transitions, Mom thought I was being overly picky with a list of 30 characteristics I was praying for in a husband. At 41, though, God brought me a gem, as Mom called Seth, my amazing husband, who fulfills every request I prayed for. She thought of Seth as her second son, and her eyes sparkled every time she saw him, just like they did with her other kids and her 4 grandchildren. Roy, my stepdad, saw that Sherilyn sparkle too. Although he regretted letting her go after high school, he did get to be Mom's husband for most of the last 9 years. Roy, along with the rest of us, wishes we had more time with her. Roy, you'll always be a part of our family, and Seth and I so appreciate how you and Mom frequently visited our Tennessee home. As I look around this room, I'm thankful that I have my mother's eyes. I pray I continue to use those eyes to see others with God's love, the one who gave Mom the love she had for all of us. In the recent months of Mom's life, we saw that sparkle in her eye. We still saw that sparkle in her eyes, just less often. She struggled with short-term memory loss and with immense physical pain getting around. I thank God that Seth and I were able to spend 5 weeks helping care for Mom and Roy this winter. I got to be the great mom that Mom had always been to us. I got to cook her meals and once again hear her say, "Loral, you are such a great cook. And I once again got to reply, "I learned from the best." Mom's choir friends will appreciate that after our meal prayer, we would sing an amen medley together. Even in her pain during that last extended visit, Mom and I had so much fun together. I stood on the platform that helped her get into bed, and I said, "I'm going to make a speech." And without missing a beat, she replied, "47 years ago." We both laughed so hard that we cried, like we often did. And although it was difficult to see Mom in so much pain, I took comfort as she said, "Jesus, Jesus, Jesus," with every excruciating step. I knew that he was the only one that could help. I was just hoping for healing on earth rather than in heaven. I'm so grateful that Mom got to see her kids achieve their lifelong dreams. First and foremost, we all have wonderful spouses and families. Leanna, as she mentions, loves her teaching job at Nativity that started just this last year. And then just this October, Lance was able to step away from a suffocating career. And in December, I published my second book, Led to Lasting Love, which shares how God spoke to me to help me ditch relationship dysfunction and choose his chosen man for me. When Mom heard a podcast this winter I was on talking about my latest book, she said, "My baby's going to be famous." Well, that isn't my desire. I do know that if Mom were here, she would tell you to go buy my book on Amazon and write a review. So if love stories aren't your thing, I have a funny, touching book with a full-size color pictures about my cat. So please forgive my shameless plug, but I could not accurately speak for Mom without telling you about them. And if you were to read either of my books, you would see how God used a love of art and nature that Mom instilled in me as part of my story for his glory. Speaking of glory, I take comfort knowing Mom is beholding the sparkling streets of gold and the full circle rainbow around the throne of God. Best of all, she has the peace and love of seeing Jesus face to face, and she's reunited with her loved ones. And once again, she is full of sparkle, fun, and adventure. Matthew 5:16 encapsulates what my mom would have wanted all of us to do in her honor. "Let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." Mom's favorite song was Louis Armstrong's What a Wonderful World. If you are missing her, or if you are sad for whatever reason, perhaps listen to that song, think of Mom, and share your own sparkle. Thank you.